Okay, the DACs are also USB.
Oh, that's fine. Everything's fine.
USB, huh? Some persistence.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna tell that story when that news comes up
Uh-oh. Which one?
about you being.
We don't tell stories on this show. No.
It's all
No.
facts.
Appropriate for pre-show.
Appropriate for pre-show. It's not bad. Well, it covers the news article though, kind of. I just thought it was funny that we'll go over. It doesn't matter. Graham sends me a thing about getting persistence on using udev and USB, right? And I'm like, that's weird. Like, why would you ever do that? Like, no one's plugging in USB that often where persistence would matter. But he like makes all the bunch of cool ASCII art and a bunch of other stuff and then sends it over. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. All right. And then literally when I wake up, the first news article is like, new malware uses udev for persistence, and I'm like, oh my god.
Why are you asking me like that?
That was real quick, and then I like message Graham. I'm like, do not message me of this on Discord. Move to Signal.
No. What happened was I read an article like last week talking about it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And it was like super, super easy to implement. So I did it, and I woke up today, and like apparently everyone also found it super easy to implement. So that's all everyone's talking about.
But that persistence method, it does require root access, right?
Right.
Okay, that's what I thought whenever I saw the article.
Yeah.
I prefer cron as the preferred persistence mechanism on Linux.
Solid.
That's a good one. I don't know. I feel like every time I use cron, it goes wrong somehow.
I mean, how else would you? Are you using systemd? Are you that kind of Linux user? Are you like scheduling
I'm
things
using
in
this one
systemd
from now
somehow?
on. I love systemd. It's great.
Yeah.
Every time I hear systemd, I just think of initial D. Like
Same thing.
Else? Yeah.
Systemd is basically drifting, but for your operating system.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense then.
Yeah.
It does a little bit of everything,
Yeah.
including persistence.
Whenever I want to play Mario Kart hardcore, I just put on the initial D soundtrack and just like rage. If anyone, initial D is a drifting anime that's pretty old if you've never watched it. So highly recommend it.
I thought you were saying like init D.
No,
Yeah, that's what I thought you were talking about. Too.
No,
I had
no.
idea what
D
you're talking
is that's
about.
the
Yeah.
alternative.
Wait, if
There's
it makes you feel any
initial
better,
D.
I get your reference.
I know. I'm glad you got it.
I was
Right?
literally born
Yeah.
in 1999, so
It's a classic car anime. All right. It's if you're into cars, highly suggest it. It's pretty good. It's great.
also not.
It's on
Try to
Netflix,
ignore
I
all
believe.
the stuff that isn't cars because it's very cringe.
That's very true.
So who wants
Like
to
most
drive the show
anime.
today? Because like I'm just coming off of teaching and I have no flipping clue what we got for stories.
That makes it even better.
Wait,
Does that make like 9 of us who have no clue what
And
we're
how about
talking
this?
about?
I'll just announce it and I'll be like, you guys just pick a story out of your ass and then we'll run with it. Does that sound
We
good?
should do a news. We should do a
Check
newscast.
your mic, John.
We should
Oh,
do a
wait.
newscast where we just make up the news just on the spot. Like no
No,
one
we
knows.
should use AI to
like
make
it.
Yeah,
up
yeah. Remember?
No,
remember?
AI's too good. It'd be more fun if it's humans making up the news. Like this week, Sentinel-1 had a kernel bug and all the computers are broken. That's what AI would come
Sentinel
up
One has
with.
been
AI would be
acquired by
like,
Microsoft.
yeah. Oh, Nvidia's been acquired by Microsoft in a half the globe level deal.
Right.
That's just scary stuff. Don't put that into
Don't put
existence.
it like that. Scary.
Don't worry, it's
No,
me, John
put it
for
put it as
antitrust.
Microsoft was acquired by Nvidia.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There
Mike.
we go. That's it.
They placed an order that was big enough that they just said, actually, instead of this, just give us your entire company, and then we'll give you back the GPUs.
Child of Alliance says, sound like we want to do an onion version of cybersec, so we could just be like onion sec news.
No, Onion is like actually funny and curated and like kind of too
They have a
smart
live
for us.
podcast that's none of those things. All right, let's bring it out. Let's kick out the jams, and I'll kick us off. But you guys be looking at the show like notes, and let's take it from there.
All right.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Black Hills Information Security, talking about news. I have no idea what the news stories are today. Apparently nothing's happening in the world of computer security. I've been kind of on vacation over the past weekend, plus 4 or 5 days. I don't know. I am the owner of the company. There's a lot of day drinking involved. But I've also been teaching our Antisyphon Pay What You Can classes. So coming straight from class, straight into this with no potty breaks. I'm just going to hand it off to the cast and figure out what stories we want to cover. Does anybody have a story we would like to start out by discussing today?
I wanted to talk about Telegram. That was my hot.
Seems like
article.
one of the
the
big
Alright.
ones.
CEO
Alright,
being
yeah.
arrested.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's much to. I don't think there's much to discuss other than I feel like how is this legal? That's my big question. Like, okay, so the scenario for those that don't know is Pavel
France.
Durov. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Pavel Durov.
Pavel?
Let me
Oh,
ask
yeah.
Google real quick.
Yeah.
Basically,
Pavel.
the guy that made Telegram and also VK, which is a Russian version of Facebook, was arrested in France. And Telegram, for those that don't know, is a end-to-end encrypted chat program that is, I guess let's call it, heavily used by good and bad actors. I think it's probably where I get the most dark web action on any other chat platform personally. But basically, the reason he got arrested is because they failed to comply with law enforcement requests for takedowns. But it's an end-to-end encrypted chat app. So I'm like, are takedowns even feasible? Like, is this also the company is headquartered in Dubai, but incorporated in like the Caribbean islands or British Virgin Islands or something? So it's kind of they've really spread themselves out across the globe from like a legal perspective. But I guess somehow they managed to arrest him in France. So I guess how is that even legal? Sean, do you know how that's legal? How can you just arrest people when they show up in your country?
I love how I've somehow become the guy to go to for
You're
every
the lawyer
esoteric
guy
legal
for this
question.
now.
You're a
globally.
lawyer now.
Yep.
No, it's that's actually one of my questions too. Is just trying to figure out what the jurisdiction is on
He's
this.
he's
Like,
a French citizen.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh,
he
that's-
is?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got dual citizenship with
I thought he was a
France
Russian
and
national.
Dubai.
No. He's got dual citizenship, so
okay.
the France.
Oh well, if
he
he's
was
a
in
French
France.
citizen, that makes it a lot more feasible.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because I was like looking at this. Okay, he's from Russia, but I guess so for a little bit of backstory, he founded VK, which is Russian Facebook, and then the government took it over. So he's like, nah, I'm out. Peace out. So I guess maybe the future of Telegram. I mean, the article is basically being like the future of Telegram is uncertain. Obviously, he's not the only one. He's not committing code into Git every week because he's the CEO. But
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's like maybe now that government wants to get involved, he'll just be like, good luck. It's on its own. I don't know.
So, all right. So, whenever you're looking at like international law and a lot of these different things, I want to bring up a case that you can kind of reference when you're thinking about this. So, Albert Gonzalez was the guy behind the TJ Maxx hacking. He also did a bunch of other hacking and things like that as well. Not that technically an advanced of an attacker, but he was working with a group of people. Like I said, the name was Get Rich or Die Trying. And one of the individuals that was in that group, they had warrants out for their arrests, right, in multiple different countries. Now, usually when you're looking at jurisdiction, the United States, when we're talking about certain cyber crimes, believes that they have jurisdiction if the attacking traffic starts, terminates, or passes through the United States, which means all cybercrime is under the jurisdiction of the United States. But countries establish these things called memos of understanding. And it's basically extradition treaties between countries. So if somebody is wanted in the United States, they can go to, if somebody's in that another country where you have the memo of understanding and the extradition treaties, then you can actually pull that person over. Now, there's also exceptions for these. An example would be like Roman Pawlowski. He's in a country, I think somewhere in Europe, I can't remember. But their extradition does not extend to what he's wanted for here in the United States. So one of these attackers that worked with Albert Gonzalez, I can't pronounce his name. I just looked it up. His name is Yastraminsky, I think is how it's pronounced. He was actually acquired while he was traveling through Turkey. Like he was just flying through Turkey. Now, the Turkish government wanted him because he had broken into a bunch of banks in Turkey. And the United States government wanted him because he had broken into TJ Maxx and Heartland. And I can't remember, there was a bunch of other places that he had broken into with Albert Gonzalez. And in that situation, which I think is absolutely phenomenal, he was arrested in Turkey, and the Turkish authorities called the United States and they said, hey, we've got this guy that's wanted in the United States. He's also wanted on charges here in Turkey. And the United States said, Turkey, you got him? Turkey's like, yeah. And they're like, cool, we're fine. So he is now in prison in Turkey. So when you're looking at this entire world of extradition and when people can be arrested in different countries and how they're traversing across those countries, it is really, really complicated. But usually for most Western countries, the United States wins unless they don't, I guess, is a way of it.
Well, he wasn't wanted in the U.S. I don't think.
He wasn't. He was, yeah.
So
it was all in France, I think, is where it all went down.
And a couple of corrections from the chat. People were saying that apparently I said it was end-to-end encrypted. They claim it is, but apparently lots of experts have called into question how effective the encryption actually is when it applies. It's pretty bad from a privacy perspective. So maybe there is some merit. It kind of seems like an espionage thing a little bit to me, of like he's supposedly just met with Vladimir Putin. Like it's kind of, I don't know. It's a dicey. It needs a Netflix documentary.
He wasn't arrested because of Telegram. He was arrested because the prosecutor in Paris has some evidence that he has ties to ongoing racketeering.
And also terrorism as well. I thought there was some terrorism as well.
Well, it also says he's accused of complicity and negligence involving Telegram's use for crimes such as drug trafficking, child sexual exploitation, and fraud. So, like, he's facing charges in, France as well.
This is very similar to the Dark Wire book that we talked about last week, right? Where all the cybercrime, like encrypted telephones, most of those are all used pretty much by criminals, but then some of them were used by normal people. But what they use the exact same charges in order to arrest or at least take down those companies as well, right? So if you're not helping out the law enforcement, usually they're going to come after you in some way or another.
The question that
I call out Sloth Boy, Graham just kicked out a message on Twitter.
He's also here. Hi, Graham.
Here.
Hey, hi. There you are.
I am Sloth Boy. I am the one.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because whenever Moxie talks about this stuff, we listen. Because Moxie knows more than everybody about these things as well.
Yeah, he's one of those people where like I follow his Twitter account and he very rarely tweets, but whenever he does, it's like, oh, you should probably like pay attention to this. But he had tweeted, this is back in 2021, so it may or may not still be relevant, but he had basically talked about how a lot of companies and like media coverage says that these messages are encrypted when using Telegram. But you can kind of like, technically it's true, but the way that they're doing it is not like the way that Signal encrypts things. And you can test that just by, going and downloading Telegram on a different device, logging in, and all of a sudden all of your messages and contacts and stuff are back on that new device, which kind of means like if it were fully end-to-end encrypted, that wouldn't be possible, which is why on Signal, when you do the same thing, you don't get access to any of your old messages. You're basically like starting from scratch. So I don't know how much that plays into what he got arrested for. It sounds like it's something totally different. But the question I have is like, if this is true, or even if people think it's true, why don't people just use Signal?
Well, because of inertia.
Doesn't Telegram have more of like a shop forum feature, right? Where you can just post stuff and everyone can see it. Less a chat room, more of a forum.
Yeah, I would guess it's the scale. It's probably, I don't think you're right. It's more of a social thing. So I use Telegram primarily for like dark web monitoring of like Stealer logs and other like, dark sources of data, whatever you want to call them. And a lot of these chats that I'm in have, thousands, 50,000 people that are basically just, it's like a news feed or whatever. It's not like you can't even type anything in the chat. It's literally just like, here's some crime. Like it's just happening and you kind of follow along. I will say though, given the encryption and things that people have discussed, it sounds like they actually could moderate it. They could, it's not really end-to-end encrypted and they have a lot of centralized control. They probably could moderate it and probably just don't. So maybe that's why. I don't know.
But I think that there's a couple of interesting things about that, right? Like, let's say 3. The first interesting thing is, and this is what Moxie's talking about, it's not end-to-end encrypted. Like his test of delete the thing completely, load it up on another phone. If all of your crap is still there, it's not end-to-end encrypted.
All right. So it's centrally, they have the keys, right?
So, and I think that is a really interesting conversation to be had. Like, why are criminals continuing to use something that is not end-to-end encrypted? The second thing is, what is the complacency of a platform for the crimes that happen on that platform? So if we're looking at Telegram, or if we're looking at even Twitter, or if we're looking at Facebook, if we're looking at any of these different platforms, if crimes are happening on these platforms, then how much responsibility does the platform actually have to have for that? And I think that that's very much an interesting question. And one of the things I love about it is it doesn't fall down conservative liberal ideologies, right? I think everybody that gets on a platform like this likes the idea of end-to-end encryption and perfect secrecy. But when it comes right down to it, they start to get very angry when crimes happen on those platforms. And they're like, how come nobody could see this? So, there's
Yeah.
some really interesting things we have to deal with.
Is
The other thing about this is I've been watching this story and watching how it's breaking, how people are relating to this gentleman that started Telegram. And I think one of the things I would like to see in the community is, let's not jump to conclusion on this stuff. Like in the security community, where you have people that are like, oh, he's a martyr, right? And other people are like, he's a criminal. We don't know the full extent of the data that is against this individual at this point. It could be purely political. He hung out with Vladimir Putin, and that's espionage, and we're gonna try to hurt him for it. It absolutely could be that, but it also could be that he is directly training organizations to use Telegram, or supporting them in what they're doing, and he's really kind of involved in a lot of these bad activities. And the point is, we really shouldn't jump to any level of conclusion about what's going on for him as an individual, as a defendant, until we see more like data actually hit the streets.
Yeah, that's a good point. I
Mhm.
mean, it is interesting. Like somehow Elon Musk is defending him, which is like, what is going on?
That makes a lot of that makes a lot of sense if you look at like Elon and his
Yeah.
take on free speech absolutism, and there's
Yeah.
actually a similar line of discussion between a couple of MPs over in the UK that have said they'd like to bring Musk up on charges for people using X to coordinate and organize some of the riots that were just happening over there.
Right.
Yeah.
So Musk probably sees this as very much
Yeah.
analogous
I
to
got
what's
you.
going on there.
He's like, I already don't like France. No, I really don't like
No, I
them.
really don't like them.
Damn Europeans!
But all of this is shit we've got to work out, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to decide, like, how much moderation does a platform have to deal with, right?
Mhm.
And
I mean-
it's also hilarious to me because this is solvable by the platforms if everything was end-to-end encrypted. If it was,
Well,
but you can't do ads, you can't do tracking, you can't make a lot of money by creating a Twitter where the direct communication is end-to-end encrypted.
a couple of I think a couple of little context points people are mentioning from the chat. One is that Facebook chat went end to end like a couple of years ago, and that was a big deal, right? Like Facebook, also their whole business model is monetizing people's data, but they managed to pull it off, probably kicking and screaming, if we're being honest. Maybe for that reason, we don't know. I mean, we'll never know the real reason why they did it, but they did do it, and it's at scale, and it's social media. The other thing to think about is that French law might be completely weird and something we're not ready to deal with. But I will say the one thing that's similar between France and the US law wise is that part of the problem that law enforcement has with this guy is that they didn't respond or comply with requests from law enforcement. We've talked about it multiple times on the show. You don't necessarily have to give them everything, but you have to at least show willingness to participate, willingness to
Good faith.
good faith. Like Apple's a really high profile example with the San Bernardino shootings from years ago. Like they basically said, like, we're here, we'll help you in any way we can, but we can't get this guy's encryption key off his phone because it's end-to-end encrypted. So
and then celebrates like, oh, we got that.
yeah, well, right, because if the phone wasn't fully patched, or there was some vulnerability or whatever. But basically, like, it's an interesting conversation. You do have to at least toe the line with law enforcement. I think this kind of outlines that. Like, you can't just completely leave law enforcement on red and expect not to get arrested when you step off the private jet. So
Yeah.
So there's 12
it's
crimes.
It's an interesting story. I think it kind of boils down to keep watching this space, watching how the story progresses. Number one, but number two, I do think we need to have some serious conversations about what end-to-end encryption actually means. And I think Moxie in his tweets that we laid out, I think it kind of sets up some good test case scenarios for us to evaluate it.
Well, the other question that I've got is how closely is the U.S. government going to be watching this with the section of the Telecommunications Act that we have here that says social media people and the owners of the sites are not liable for the content put on them. We know that's been tried to be rolled out a couple of times. Would a successful prosecution in this case give the politicians here in the US more teeth for something along those lines?
Dude,
Not a
that
lot
gets
from a legal
into
standpoint.
oh my God.
Because if you're talking legal standpoint, it goes back to a precedent of. I mean, you'd be better off looking at a legal precedent from like medieval England, but
Yeah, but
something
he's
in
not he's not talking about precedent. He's talking about moving forward. Like when we're looking at laws being created, because right now they're not. I can't remember what exactly the number of the law is that they're not
Section
responsible.
230
Section
of the
230.
the
And a
Telecoms
lot of what
Act.
they're trying to do is to try to tie in Section 230 whenever they're looking at the internet. Like, are phone companies all the phone companies, are they going to be responsible for tracking all the crimes that happen on phones? Are states that have interstates, are they going to be responsible? Like, there's, where do you actually draw that line? And I think the question that he was asking, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, is, what is the appetite for legislation to change that? Do we even want that to happen?
It is a little bit of that. It also is public opinion, considering how they're framing it in a lot of normal media right now is about child pornography and child sexploitation.
Mhm.
And with that, we all know how that does not taste right to everybody. If France goes ahead and prosecutes him and everything, why would people in the US, and I'm not going to go political aisle because this transcends both aisles, go ahead and say, yes, we need to go ahead and start making these people responsible for this sort of stuff, especially something like we've seen what's happened with Twitter or X lately with some of the stuff that's wind up going, some of the garbage that's gone out on there since Musk has taken over. Now, all of a sudden, they've got a precedent saying, see, this country can go ahead and do it. Why can't we?
Yep.
Well, I wonder what Discord's doing, right? Because obviously some nefarious things happen on Discord, but are they taking things down? I think the answer is yes, but like to what
Definitely.
scale?
So
I mean, yeah.
because we have a very
Discord's
large
active.
Discord presence, there absolutely is some filters like hot dog, not hot dog type filters that are out there. But I believe kind of like what I'm seeing with Discord is it feels like they're doing enough to say that they have due diligence, right?
Yeah, totally.
That is what I'm getting from Discord. The other thing
Telegram does nothing.
You have to have a
absolutely
front
nothing.
end.
absolutely nothing.
Because Telegram,
There's
But
100 people at
it's
Telegram.
it's a chat app.
Mhm.
Except the difference between like Telegram and other chat apps is giant group messages, which feels a lot like what did everyone move to after X or Twitter?
Blue
became the
Sky?
thing?
Threads.
Mastodon.
Mastodon.
It's like Mastodon, where you can just go in there and like.
Yeah,
shout
but one
things
big
out.
difference is that, like Discord, Telegram is hosting the content. So unlike Mastodon, which is a decentralized, like I can set up a Mastodon server and say, "Oh, my Mastodon is cat pics or whatever," and like if
True.
you join it. But
it's-
Telegram hosts all this content, and I can tell you, like when I'm downloading terabytes of Stealer logs, I'm downloading them from Telegram servers, and there is zero moderation happening on that content, and that is super
Oh, yeah.
sketchy.
I
will
don't
say
think
as
they
a
have a moderation team. That's why, right?
no,
Yeah, they
well
don't
as a
have moderation. They
callback,
don't
Wild
do
West.
moderation.
yeah, as a callback, the Another Darknet Diaries episode is the Kick episode, which Kick is functionally duplicate of Telegram. They're
Yeah.
like basically the exact same. And so I think that like, the whole angle of like unmoderated chat is kind of an old it's an old problem. And I don't think the Kick thing ever really got resolved. Like it just kind of did it get resolved? I honestly don't know. Like I'm not really up to date on that kind of thing, but in the episode, he doesn't seem too confident that that's going to get fixed. But I don't know, just an interesting thing to maybe listen to for people.
Yeah. All right, let's find another story. We love getting down privacy rabbit holes all the time.
Yeah, that went deep.
Yeah, that one did go deep.
Do we want to talk about the new Linux persistence thing that we were talking a little bit about before?
Oh,
Post the
dear
link.
God, yes. This sounds technical and fun and doesn't involve privacy. or
I know
log
it's
It is
what is
very
it
technical
said
and very fun.
said exp. I still can't
Mhm.
not see sex when I look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Also,
sex
so the
deep.
article
Sex deep. What?
the article
What'd you
starts
say?
out by saying Streutz Friedberg. I thought that was like the researcher, but apparently that is the company. But apparently they have been doing some research on this new type of financially motivated threat actor that's been doing some interesting things with udev rules in Linux. And so basically, like what this article gets into is anytime you connect a device to a Linux system, the kernel will basically fire these udev rules saying like, hey, a USB was added to the system or whatever. And basically what this allows you to do if you're an attacker, you have to have root. So that's the first thing. But once you're root on a system, you can essentially run your persistence method whenever a device is connected. But what's interesting is it doesn't just have to be a physical device. It can also be a virtual device. So it can be something like dev random. So essentially what that means is if you reboot your system, every time you reboot, if it's a Linux system, dev random is going to get loaded. So your payload will execute every single time it loads.
Yeah.
Which
I
is
mean, I
pretty
will say,
cool.
okay, this is a really cool technique and persistence mechanism, and it's something to be aware of for incident responders. But I will say, like, just a little bit of like healthy context for me. If you have root on Linux, your options for persistence are many. And
Right.
the fact that they're like, this is running in a sandbox without detection. Is there any sandbox that's detecting any Linux malware or persistence mechanisms?
None, really.
No, it's
Like-
some Linux
like,
guru like looking
come
at the
on.
file and being like, yep, that's running a payload.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Also, like, this is targeting 0.0000001% of global endpoints. Most Linux boxes are probably VMs or servers that don't have any. I mean, you could use it for persistence with with on reboot or stuff, but
What if
I
it's
love the
just
comment in the
looking
chat
for
from Dio.
for cryptocurrency wallets? I think that cryptocurrency
I mean, it's
wallets and
financially
active use
motivated.
and Linux users, there's a direct correlation between those
it's
two.
probably like popping web servers and trying to siphon credit cards. I think there was another article about that, so it's probably adding in that angle.
Well,
But
and
I don't know.
This kind of reminds me, once again, I'm here for like the old shit. Talking about this level of injection in the kernel. Back in 2003, there was somebody submitted some code updates to the Linux kernel, where if you set wclone and wall flags set at the same time, it would automatically elevate you to root. And it made it to the final check. I think Linus Torvalds himself caught this, and this was totally a backdoor that almost made it in. But this kind of goes back to what Corey said. If somebody gets root on your server, you're screwed. And also what a lot of people don't know is if you actually learn Linux kernel development, like you take their class, literally they start out the class like, we're going to write a rootkit. Like I have the books for the class in here somewhere. I kid you not. They're like, we're going to be patching in and redirecting inode calls. And this is rootkit level stuff. This is a great way to learn it. But by the way, kids, don't create malware. So literally like the Linux driver classes teaches you how to write drivers by teaching you how to write rootkits. So it's just awesome. So by the way, I'm fully recommending and endorsing that class, by the way, for everybody. It's just that good.
Sure. It's a cool technique. Gotta love cool techniques. But if you're root and you can't persist, take that class.
Linux persistence.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we could outline the general lack of knowledge and tooling when it comes to Linux, just in general. A lot of the crown jewels live on Linux, and a lot of that is just see the dark area? That's where we don't have EDR go. We don't know what happens in there.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that's what
Scary.
I was kind of saying in my webcast last week. Is it's like, is anyone even paying attention to like Linux because we don't need to? Like Windows is such like a dumpster fire that we can just get domain admin super quickly. So I feel like Linux is kind of an underexplored area because it's just, I don't know, why do you need to look at it? You can just use Active Directory to get domain admin.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where, like, for a mature organization, it's worth hardening your Linux environment pretty far. But a lot of the times, if you were in the average customer of BHIS, if you were to pop a bunch of Linux boxes, you'd get, some web servers, maybe a couple databases, but they'd all be like disjointed. No one actually domain joins. I mean, I guess some do, but like, you'd be just like on random endpoints and things. So, I mean, I guess web servers, that's kind of where the crown jewels live
web
nowadays.
servers, middleware, back-end servers, like a lot of it's there. And a lot of times whenever we're pivoting through, like, but that gets to the point, like other than creating stuff for classes, I have never seen anybody at BHIS like, hey, we're on a Linux box, we need a rootkit. Like literally,
no one's going to look at your easy persistence anyway.
Yeah,
dude, my persistence is just adding my key to SSH. That's persistence.
And that's
like it's not hard.
And that works like 98% of the time. Like that's all you have to do. And then you find out that they reuse the root password. Very rarely are they using two-factor authentication. It's just like you're off to the races at that point. So I think that that's part of the reason why it's just not looked at as much, which is unfortunate. Also, there's a lack of consistency. So like if somebody comes up with a new exploit privilege escalation persistence mechanism on Windows, it works on billions of systems. If somebody finds an exploit path onto a Linux computer system, just stick with exploitation. A lot of times it's really specific to that customer and it doesn't make the news as much as like something that's used everywhere. Now, if you write a 0-day, that's completely different. But a lot of our exploits on Linux systems at BHIS are usually misconfiguration exploitation or simple password exploitation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about
Seattle?
Cool.
Just in general?
No, the Port of Seattle, the SeaTac airport, possible cybersecurity incident. This I think it was yesterday.
Possible cybersecurity incident. Here we go again.
Yeah, lots of lines. I just feel bad for everyone that's working at SeaTac. They're like, oh damn it, CrowdStrike again. It feels like
no. Oh god.
And of course, CISA's involved out there, but we really don't have a lot more. I haven't seen the story be updated. I was wondering if anybody else had anything new about it, but it's another.
Where is this article? I don't even see it.
I'm just pulling articles in now. Here, let me load it in real quick.
John's just like Googling fun news podcast article.
There we go.
I need this script.
Here it comes. Here it comes. There it is, Ryan. Sorry.
Got it.
Yeah, this is another possible exploit of some systems for an airport, but I don't know.
What is Zeet? What is XEET?
I think that's what that's a tweet.
Oh no!
Oh no!
What?
Yeah.
No, it's Zeet.
How do you pronounce it? Is it?
It's
It's pronounced tweet, just like x.com is pronounced twitter.com.
I see. Okay. I can't believe. I mean, okay. In a subsequent Kate, the Port of Seattle confirmed it had isolated critical systems and is in the process of working to restore full service. Do not have an estimated time. Is this everything, or is it just
No, I don't
operation?
think it went. I don't think it went completely. I don't think everything went down.
Long lines.
Reported long lines at an airport can make the news. I should always call the news when I go to an airport.
Right?
Well, one of the things I do, and I recommend to everybody, is if you get your ticket on your phone, always screenshot your ticket. Because I've had times where the app goes down or the website goes down that prints your ticket, or their terminals go down. I think that's happened to me like 4 or 5 times. And as long as you have a screenshot of it, it's like you're good to go.
I think
so true.
Yeah. Well, I think we're
It always asks if you want to add it to your wallet, and I'm like, who's the mastermind behind this wallet? That really
I added. You don't add it to the wallet.
No, the wallet
I just
is awesome.
screenshot it like John does. 2 buttons.
No,
It's
the
in
wallet-
there.
I'm pretty sure
The
adding
wallet
it to
is
the
the
wallet
way.
does the exact same thing.
Yes,
I'm
the
like
wallet is
90%
better.
sure.
Yeah.
The wallet is on your lock screen.
And then
you don't have to dig through your photos app. Oh, sorry, that's my cat. That's my kid. Oh, there's the.
And it will actually live update as well if your plane gets delayed. Your wallet updates it and keeps going.
But if it goes
then,
down, will it still update it?
That's,
Yes, it does.
it
I
does
have-
because airplane mode and you're still there.
Unless you have a firewall on your phone and it doesn't work that way.
No one has a firewall on their
off.
phone.
You
All
have a
right.
firewall on your phone.
All right. Well, this is one. We're just assuming ransomware. No one knows what this is, but we're
Seems
just
most
guessing
likely.
ransomware. It could be CrowdStrike. Probably ransomware.
Smells like ransomware.
Do we want to talk about Iran and Trump? It's kind of
we gotta go back and take us back into geopolitics. What could go wrong?
I know.
Yeah. So basically, the Trump campaign got hacked. A bunch of stuff got leaked. A bunch of videos, I think Heritage Foundation stuff got leaked as well. And Iran was behind it because whatever. And regardless, whatever you think of politics, Roger Stone is very deserving of bad things. Not that I would wish anyone to get hacked, but I still go back to the Macron campaign. As anybody that's ever going to be working a political campaign and doing computer security, I'm sorry.
Why
Because
are
as
you
I
even
say in my
taking inbound
classes-
emails?
I
Like
say-
what?
I say this in all my classes. If you're a bad security professional, you die and the elevator goes straight to hell, it's going to open. And it's going to open the door and you're going to do computer security at a university and for penance. If you're really, really bad, it goes one layer below that and you get to work for a campaign. I actually did some computer security for a campaign back in 2001. And it's a nightmare. They have like no budget. They bring hobos in off the streets and give them access to computer systems. It's ridiculous. But
That's
well,
a
this was a
legitimate
business
truth.
email compromise, wasn't
It
it?
was.
Wasn't it like
It was a
some
business email
someone?
compromise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was compromised? Some other dude that would totally. I would read their
Roger
email
Stone.
somehow.
Yeah.
Roger Stone. Oh, okay, yeah.
But yeah. But I go back to the Macron campaign from a number of years ago. I want to say around 2015, where they seeded their emails with bogus data, bogus reports, bogus files. So once that data was released publicly, I remember I've talked about it on this show in the past. It was released publicly and it was on WikiLeaks. And immediately the campaign said some of that data is fake. WikiLeaks responded back and said, how can you know? It's like literally was just released 5 minutes ago. And then like, I think it was like 6 hours later, WikiLeaks was like, yep, some of this data is totally bogus. That's because the Macron campaign put bogus data into it. So what
Nice.
that does for you, and this isn't just like politics, but everything. If some of that data is totally complete garbage, then if you're a reporter, you're not going to report on any of that data. It goes from the concept of it being a poisoned well. So that's the first thing. The other thing is, there was a lot of people freaking out over the double standard in 2016 when the DNC emails were compromised. I think Leon Podesta was the one who had his emails compromised. And that was all in the news, everything. It was a news story. And this one, I thought everybody did a pretty good job of saying, this crap's hacked. Let's not add insult onto injury. And there were a number of people that were like, oh, geez, this should have been handled the same way. And I disagree. I agree that it was handled differently, but does this show some maturity in like the press and saying, you know what, we're not going to report on all this garbage again? I don't know. What do you guys think? Is it like, oh, full disclosure, everything everywhere all at once? Or is it like, no, there should be some discretion in the news on these as well?
I wonder if people still get as scared when they hear something has been hacked as they did even like 5-10 years ago. Because like I think it was a few weeks ago we were
I don't think
talking
they
about
do
how
anyway.
like all the SSNs were hacked.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah,
Isn't
happens.
that weird? We've just moved on. Like,
yeah.
I had a couple of family members like, is this bad? And I was like, yes, it is bad. And that was it. That was all.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, so there was a
We've all
Solar
got
Winds
warmed up with
article.
stuff like
Sorry, Sean. There was a Solar
gonna say-
Winds article that's out there that they had hard-coded credentials. Like even the companies that like were hit hardest, like don't care. Do people care? Like, sorry, back to you, Sean.
No, I was just gonna say something the same vein. I mean, like when the entire population's been warmed up with Experian or Equifax rather, and various other things that have already compromised, a third of the population here, a third of the population there. It's like it's kind of human nature to just be like, oh yeah, that's happened before.
So here's what I think we should do, since we failed as security professionals, clearly, because everything is breached all the time, everywhere. How's about this? How about we just all go into cryosleep and we wait 50 years and then we try it again with another generation, because we've so screwed this up. Everything is breached everywhere. It's just like, sorry, we're just going to go to sleep for 50 years. Maybe I'm just really tired, but maybe we'll try it again. Because what are we protecting now? Honestly,
EMP everything.
Like at this point, like, are we protecting everyone's soul? Nope, that's gone. Are we protecting credit? Nope, that's gone. What are we protecting anymore?
Companies'
Future
profits.
of
Corporate
our
secrets.
children.
Pretty
I
much
wasn't
corporate
protecting
secrets.
anything. I was here to
Corporate
break into
secrets.
stuff.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Protecting the corporations and how they screw us over. I forgot.
Well-
We do need to keep going on that.
Okay, so a couple of things on this. I think the biggest reason people don't care is because they have no control. Like it's very rare. I think the only time people care about getting hacked is when it's something personal, not their social security number, because they can't control who has access to that. But like, people are like, can you get my Snapchat back? And I'm like, what? Like who do you think I am? I don't even know what that is. What is a snapshot? Please explain what a zeet is. But no, yeah, I mean, I think the thing is like, who has my social security number? I don't know, thousands of data brokers. I can't control that. Like you can sign up for a data broker that data brokers your data brokers for you. But I mean, like, I don't know.
And when you're talking about being breached, like you talk about data brokers selling that crap to everybody. How is that any different than the hackers having it? Right. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, the next Netflix series. Somebody said, "Will it be better in 50 years?" No, it just means we get to try it on a new group of people. maybe we can get it locked down.
Assuming it's still people and not robots.
Assuming it's still people and not raccoons that took over.
Cockroaches?
But
cockroaches.
Will it be any better in 50 years?
I will tell you one thing that isn't safe is death records or any government files that control said records or government.
It sounds like a segue.
Let's go to Hawaii.
See, unlike you guys who like to report on real news, I like to report on these stunt hacks that are actually interesting.
Stunt hacks, yeah. Tell us about the wings.
So a Kentucky man who hacked into the state registry and faked his own death to avoid paying child support.
Oh,
right?
I remember.
So
that's not a stunt hack. That's grassroots.
It's grassroots, but he did buy some creds on the dark web, which goes back to our common credential theft, right? Paragraph number 2. But yes, this is an older one, but we always like an update here on the news. And he was sentenced to 81 months.
It wasn't
which
Hawaii.
I don't think is something. It wasn't Hawaii. It was Kentucky.
I'm confused.
He lived in Kentucky.
This is the link that I was given.
I am
Scroll
so
up
confused.
He lived in Kentucky, hacked Hawaii, then hacked some other things, changing his death record so he didn't have to pay child support.
He hacked himself through Hawaii.
Man, you can turn that into a service and make a bunch of money.
Death as a service? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the only way
then
out.
he would have been fine paying child support. He'd have
Is
the money.
that what the service delete
That's
me
the
is?
only way out.
Does delete me just
Delete
kill
you.
you? Do they just kill you in your sleep? They're just like,
Josh.
you are being terminated. Do not resist.
Where did someone had a feedback on this that like you don't want to do that. It is really, really hard to come back from like being dead with like death records. I think it was
imagine Googling zombie Hawaii.
Honestly, if he's in Kentucky, right? Like I would imagine, like one thing, he is at least a decent enough hacker to go on there, buy some dark web credentials, and realize stuff that puts him at entry level. I will give you, and the death record stuff. But he is in Kentucky, so what if he's just like backwoods, like John Strand Fiber-esque thing in the middle of nowhere? He's just like, I don't even need civilization anymore. I can just hack stuff and live in the swamp or something. I don't know.
Okay, so here's the interesting angle that I don't know if you mentioned, Wade. Is
such a wonderful view you have.
It was a third party death certifier, medical death certifier. That was like the person that got hacked. So it's like apparently that's a high value credential. Is like, what do you do? Oh, I'm a medical death certifier, so I use two-factor.
Think about the recon he had to do to find that third party too, right? Like I wouldn't think to look for a third party. Like you're gonna have to.
I guarantee you, he went on Telegram. He went on Telegram and said, "Here's what he did." I've seen this happen right before my very eyes. He went on Telegram and he said, "I need to die. Will pay. Who can help?" And then some 12-year-old with a fire stick who's already in prison told him exactly how to do it and sold him the credentials and then just said, "Log in here, submit your death certificate here. Now give me half a Bitcoin and we're cool." Like, it's,
do you think anybody looked on Telegram for those chicken wings?
John didn't get over like how horrible of a human being he is, but how well thought out he is. Like
he's a good hacker. Should we hire him? No, probably not.
No, probably not.
I don't think you'd like him.
Yeah,
But plus he's dead, so we can't pay him. So there's that. But seriously, dying. Okay, maybe he got out of 116K in child support, but he also like got out of like Josh said, you can't undie. So he can't get a job
if you're dead.
Yes, technically he did get out of child support.
That's true.
Too.
Wade's whole thing about swamping is the only option at that point. That's all. That's
I did search on LinkedIn, and there is a company called the Death Certification Company, the DCC. So maybe we could look into them.
Oh, I've Googled DCC hacking before, but for a different reason.
What was your reason?
Domain cache credentials. It was not very funny. Also, those are usually expired. You crack those things, that's the biggest buzzkill in pen testing. You're like, ooh, domain cache credentials, and they're always expired. So don't bother. Don't do it. Don't like die. It's another thing you shouldn't do.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fun stunt hack, though. I will say, like, okay, so they only got, what was the actual sentencing? Or I guess is
6
that
years.
TBD?
I'd had to do the math because I couldn't do 81 divided
81
by 12
months.
It's a little
real quick.
under
Almost 7 years.
So
Almost
And I'm
7 years.
assuming, they also he still has to pay the child support. Like they somehow, or no, or is that like, I'm assuming.
I mean,
yeah,
presumably,
why is
right?
that not in the article? I feel like that'd be.
Yeah.
I don't know
last
how he's
line.
gonna pay.
Still
Is he
has
like
to pay.
doing what, like stamping license plates for the next 6 years? He'll pay off like $1 or something. Like,
Yeah. I will say
know.
it'd be really funny
That's a
to
thing.
hear. It'd be really funny to hear like the court system trying to go after a guy who's legally dead. They're like, "Sir, it says we can't prosecute this guy because he's dead." No, he's not dead. I put it in the notes. He's fake dead. I told you.
he probably would have had to hack Kentucky's death certificate to protect himself from that, though, right? Like, where did they prosecute?
No,
We're getting too far into
Yeah,
this to tell you the truth. But.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny. Good one. What else? Apparently, there's a backdoor in RFIDs. Has anyone read up on this one?
No, where's that at?
It's Hacker News. Hardware backdoor discovered in RFID cards used hotels and offices worldwide by Ravi Lakshmanan. Lakshmanan?
You just pull in random articles again.
No, it's real, I swear. I'm not even dead.
There it is.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
So apparently it's MyFair Classic. There's a backdoor within a particular model of MyFair Classic, which I don't know if this means something to you. Come on the show next week. It's called FM11RF08S.
Oh,
Is
that
inside.
version.
Yeah, everyone knows that. Apparently, any entity with knowledge of that specific backdoor can compromise all user-defined keys, which I think MyFair is already, I think one of the newer standards. As we know, these like physical badging standards, they lag way behind. Like, if it came out in 2020, it probably won't be implemented anywhere until 2025 or whatever. But
It's a lot of the same problem you have with with IT and OT systems in general.
yeah,
You got physical hardware that's out in circulation. The stuff doesn't break very often. There's no motivation to bring it in and replace it or update it. If it ain't broke,
Yeah.
don't fix it.
Yeah, I mean, apparently, like, I don't know. I mean, I remember iClass SE or whatever. There was tons of attacks against that. I mean, this is one of those, like, I think this protocol or this tech is already pretty outdated or pretty, like, weak. So
Did
Yeah,
we
it's
report
weak.
on this? Because I remember reading this hardcore because they didn't find like a way around it. They found a hardware backdoor within the keys and via only a certain Chinese manufacturer.
Yeah.
Which then opens up other stuff like, did China put that in there on purpose to get through some doors?
yeah, who knows?
Put on my tinfoil hat.
Yeah, I mean, how much? I mean, it'd be interesting. I don't know if there's any stats on this, but like, what is the protocol usage of like the MyFair versus iClass versus HID SE or whatever, like all the different protocols used for physical badging across hotels or wherever?
Yeah, I think MyFair is the one that's typically used in hotels, isn't it?
I think
That's what
so.
it says.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like the most common one.
Yeah, and they've already been fairly easy
Destroyed.
to break into. Like all the hardware hacking people, I don't know, just walk through those things.
Do we just assume all these are going to have some issue at some point, and you can clone them, or you can do some other nefarious things with them?
Probably. And I will say, like, maybe this is the backdoor was put in by the hotel chain so they could search people's rooms in DEF CON and make sure there was no hacking going on.
There's no computers in here. We can go.
There's no computers. Sir, there's a fire stick. All right, stop. Hold the presses.
Pull everything right now. What the hell is
They're
this?
trying
A
to watch.
ducky? What's that? Some type of sex toy, sir.
And they had a
Leave it
case
be.
of chicken
That's
wings.
Vegas. That's allowed.
They had a case of chicken wings from Chicago
black
and
market
a bunch
wings.
of. All right, what's next? Who's got another one?
We want to talk. There's that story about that ALBeast AWS load balancer config issue. It looks like it might be less interesting. It sounds like it's a user config as opposed to
Another
an actual
config.
vuln in
Yeah, that's what I
AWS.
got out of it too.
Yeah. I mean,
Which
still,
is like,
I
it's
mean,
almost like cloud, cloud
Yeah.
providers have config settings you can screw up. Newsflash.
it's kind of like that .env story we talked about on the news or whatever. Like people that misconfigure cloud environment. Cloud doesn't mean more secure; it just means more attack surface. You still have to lock it
Yes.
down. You still have to lock down the cloud. I mean, I guess what should people? Is there a takeaway for what people should go and make sure that is turned off, or like how does one fix this flaw quickly?
Yeah, I'm skimming through. The article we had in our main links is actually not that great. I'm looking at another one right now that's talking about some signature validation being the big thing that I'm seeing here on requests from the load balancer. Because from what I was skimming, it looks like the actual exploit involves basically setting up your own infrastructure and having it basically claim to have been signed by the your target, and then there's this if you haven't properly set up the full check chain on the authentication, it looks like it just passes it right on through.
Gotcha.
I was just skimming.
Yeah, I can only see the Wired article, which, as we know from earlier, I don't have.
I was just skimming these other
so.
two. I'll throw them up on. Ooh, the Hacker News one has an infographic. There
I
we
can't
go.
get through the paywall, sir. Try harder. So another one that we could potentially talk about is this. It's actually a callback to another article that we talked about years ago, which was the whole GM. I don't know if this is the same thing, but I remember we talked about how GM had sold their drivers, like it was a Chevy Bolt or something, but they sold the driver's behavior to their insurance, and then the insurance went way up. But basically, this has now centered back to a lawsuit which was filed against GM, where apparently they were, they're now been Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has sued GM for the unlawful collection and sale of over 1.5 million Texans' private driving data to insurance companies without their knowledge or consent. So this is something we talked about on the news, like probably maybe 2 years ago, maybe a year ago. It was a long time ago, and now it's a lawsuit. So
where's the article?
The original or the new?
Oh, never mind. I found it.
Here's the new article. I'll see if I can go back and find the original article.
I controlled that for GM and not General Motors. My fail.
Basically, GM collected scores of data points from consumers about their driving habits and monetized it by selling it to other third parties.
Because of course they did.
Yeah, well, of course he did. Data included trip details like speed, seatbelt status, and driven distance. They also gathered other data through their mobile apps. And for those that are wondering, like, what did the drivers agree to? It was basically like on the screen when you bought the car, it was like, please accept the terms and conditions. And like you had to scroll through, 5 pages and just hit accept. So it's not like they, manually were like, I'd like to get my insurance to go down. They weren't putting a dongle in their car or anything. It was just,
Jeez.
Yeah. But I mean, I will say, it'd be funny if you just never wear your seatbelt and then like the next month your insurance triples or something. You're like, then you like start wearing your seatbelt and then it goes back down. You're like, this doesn't feel very ethical.
Just sit in the parking lot with your seatbelt on, leave your car on for like 8 hours.
That's
what I would do.
sad.
Can you
They're
tell
like,
I
"Sir,
work on the red team?
You drove at negative 65,535 miles per hour to Chick-fil-A. Are you dead? Oh.
It's like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. We're just gonna put it in reverse to take the mileage off.
That works, right?
Trip distance, -5 miles. Trip speed, -5 miles per hour.
Death by Eula. No joke.
You should name your car. If you have a GM, name your car like Little Bobby Tables. Like put it tick or 1 = 1.
Apostrophe or semicolon dash.
Like, sir, we can't increase their insurance because technically they dropped half the database after them. So we don't know. We don't know anymore.
Yeah, I always name my IoT devices like HTML, like cross-site scripting payloads. And I'm just waiting for one day where I'm like, why isn't this working? And then all of a sudden it's just like alert 1. Like, oh.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Put your name as null and then you'll get 50,000 parking tickets. We talked about that on the show.
Yeah.
AFFF0000. Let's just do a bunch of Terminator strings and see what happens. All right, let's wrap it up. You know what? It was kind of nice to have like a slightly less crazy week, but I feel like with the news being kind of a little bit off this week, I feel like it's going to just absolutely, not next week, but the week after next, I feel like I feel like when we come back, we're going to be like, oh, so everything's on fire again. So enjoy the downtime while you can, and enjoy the long weekend, everybody.
We are off next week. And
Yep,
so
we are off next week.
Mike and I, Wade, will be at Blue Team Con. So if you see us, come say hi.
Yep.
I will be giving a talk on late Sunday about detection as code.
Get out there. Check it out. All right, everybody. Thank you so much.